Hey and welcome to Hyggestrikke. Today we're gonna knit a A-shaped short sleeved blouse. Here you can see two different sizes. The gray one is size 0 to 1 month and the green one is size 2 to 4 months. You can find the yarn types in the text to the YouTube video. We're gonna use a size 14 UK sizes and a size 0 US sizes. We are also going to use a size 14 UK sizes. In the US sizes, you don't have one, but it's 3 millimeters. We are also going to use small buttons. I chose wooden buttons, but you can find other kinds of buttons. In the biggest size, you're going to use more than 3 buttons. You're going to use a scissor and a needle to weave in the ends. You're going to use a steam iron to get the final finish of the blouse. In the text to our YouTube channel, you can find other types of yarn you can use to this knitting recipe. If you choose to use other yarn type than the ones we recommend in the text to the YouTube video, please note that the sizes of the blouse may vary a bit. The blouse is knitted from the top to the bottom, so the stitches we cast on now is going to be the edge of the neckline. We're going to start with casting on stitches on our needle, which is size 14 UK sizes and size 0 US sizes. For this tiny needle size, I do recommend you use aluminium instead of wood because they do tend to break very easily in wood. When you cast on the stitches, you're gonna knit 3 rows in rib, and it's 1 knit and 1 purl. The first row you do after you cast on stitches tend to be very firm, so give it a little patience. It's gonna be better and you have a lot looser stitches in after the first row. We now knitted our 3 rows and we're gonna do a simple buttonhole. How we knit the buttonhole is that we're knitting 3 stitches on and then we cast off the middle stitch. Here we have the 3 stitches and then we take the middle stitch up and over the first stitch, like so. Then we do a loop on the yarn. You can see the yarn here, and we do a loop, and then we continue knitting our pattern, which is 1 purl, 1 knit. When we knitted the row, we're gonna return to the buttonhole, and then we're gonna knit over our tiny little loop. It's important that you go into the back of the loop and fetch the yarn and make the stitch from the back of the loop. You're gonna continue the final 2 stitches and then you're gonna continue with knitting your neckline. Now we're knitted our neckline and we're gonna go from our size needle 14 to our needle 11 UK sizes. The 4 stitches in each end we're gonna continue with 1 knit, 1 purl. However, the pattern is gonna change. We're gonna keep the 4 stitches in the front and the 4 stitches in the back, 1 knit, 1 purl. We have knitted our 4 stitches, 1 knit, 1 purl in the beginning, and now we're going to increase a stitch in the knit stitch, the whole row. We're going to knit 2 stitches on 1 stitch. So we're going to go in the back of the stitch, and then we're going to cast on a stitch, and then we're going to cast on a stitch from the front of our stitch, and then we're going to take our stitch off, and then we made 2 stitches in 1 stitch. Remember, it's only in the knit stitches, not the purl stitches. You're going to do that the whole row, only increase in the knit stitches. On the other side, we're going to do exactly the same, so our pattern is going to be 2 knit, 2 purl. As I said in the beginning, we're going to keep the 4 stitches in each end, 1 knit, 1 purl. We're now going to turn the project and do the same increase in our knit stitch. Do remember the first 4 stitches we're going to keep 1 knit, 1 purl. After that, we're going to increase every knit stitch. The knit increasing stitch we did on the other side is going to be a purl on this side. So the pattern we're knitting is now called 1 knit, 2 purls. So we're going to do an increase in our knit stitches and then knit our purl stitches. So just as we did before, we're gonna increase stitches by knitting in 2 stitches in 1 stitch. So we're gonna go from the back and knit a stitch, and then from the front and knit a stitch, and then take the old stitch of the needle, and then you have 2 stitches in 1 stitch. We're gonna do our 2 purl stitches, and then we're gonna increase again, and then that you're gonna do for the whole row, and we're gonna end up with a pattern called 2 knit and 2 purl. We're gonna do the second buttonhole, and we're gonna do it exactly the same as we did with the first buttonhole. Just like we did with the first buttonhole, we're gonna knit in 3 stitches, and then we're gonna take the middle stitch over the first stitch, and then we're gonna twirl up the yarn and continue the row. So here we take up the middle stitch on the first stitch, we cast it off 1 stitch, and then we're gonna twirl the yarn around the needle, and then we're gonna continue with our pattern. When you knit it back to the buttonhole, please note the little loop you're gonna knit in from the back of the loop and make the stitch from the back of the loop. So here we have the loop, and you're gonna knit in from the back of the loop and make your stitch. This is the middle of the chest piece, and you're gonna continue with your pattern, which is now 2 knit 2 purl. You have knitted the 2 purl 2 knit pattern, and we're gonna increase our knit stitches once again. The difference is we're only gonna increase on one side. So the pattern is going to be called 3 knit 2 purl. Remember to knit our edge the same way, like 1 purl 1 knit. That's the first 4 stitches. And then you're gonna increase in the first knit stitch of the pattern that is called 2 knit. So here we have the first knit stitch, and we're going to increase that the same way as we did before. We're going to make a stitch in the back and make a stitch in the front and take the old stitch off. After the first increase, we're going to make a regular knit, and then we're going to do our 2 purls. And then we're going to get into the 2 knit stitch pattern, and you're going to increase in the first knit stitch like here, and then do a regular knit afterwards. Continue this the whole row, so the pattern now is gonna called 3 knits 2 purls. We're gonna make the third buttonhole. After the first buttonhole that we made, we're gonna make a buttonhole for every 10th row. Note that some of the bigger sizes than the size 0 to 1 month we're knitting here needs to have more buttonholes than 3. Just as before, we're gonna knit in 3 stitches, take the middle stitch and cast over the first stitch, and then we're gonna twirl the yarn around the needle and continue our row. You have knitted back to the buttonhole and need to knit the loop. And just as we did before, you're gonna knit in from the back of the loop. As you can see here, you do a stitch in the back of the loop. We have made our third buttonhole, and we're going to continue our pattern, which is now called 3 knit 2 purls, and on the other side is going to be 3 purls 2 knit. We have knitted the third part of our increase part of the chest piece. We're gonna knit the 4 edge stitches together, so we now have the full chest piece. This we're gonna do with taking off 4 stitches on a third needle. Then we're gonna put them on top of each other and knit 2 stitches in 1 stitch, as you can see in the video. Make sure the part with the buttonhole is on top, and make sure that your knitting has the right side up, which is called 3 knit and 2 purls. Do note that having 3 needles can be tricky, so be patient. You are gonna knit in 2 stitches, find your yarn and knit a stitch in the 2 stitches, take the 2 stitches off the needles, and then continue the same thing with the 4 stitches. We have knitted our 4 stitches together, and we're gonna cast off stitches for our first sleeve. When you cast off stitches, you're gonna knit in 2 stitches, take the back stitch over the first stitch, knit a stitch more, and then take the back stitch over the first stitch. Continue this until you have the size of your sleeve. Now we casted off our first sleeve, and you can start to see the project is turning into something recognizable as a blouse. You're gonna continue the next piece in knit. And this is our belly piece. Or to be more precise, the first half of our belly piece. We have knitted in knit our first half of our belly piece, and we have done the first sleeve, as you can see in the video here. It is now time to cast off stitches for the second sleeve. We have casted off our stitches on the second sleeve, and we can now see more clearly that it's slowly turning into a small blouse. Everything here is the sleeves, short sleeves, and the chest piece. The next part is knitting over the second part of the belly piece. You're gonna continue knitting over both belly pieces all the way around for several rows. You can see in the text above how many rows you need to knit. We have knitted over our belly piece, and it's time to increase stitches in the belly piece. We are going to continue in knitting in knit, but we are going to increase a stitch for every 10th stitch. When we increase a stitch, do remember to mark them with something. I like to mark them with old pieces of yarn. We're going to increase our stitches just like we did so many times before. You're going to knit in the back of the stitch and then in the front of the stitch, and then you knit it in 2 stitches in 1 stitch. Do that for every 10th stitches. You can see in the text above how many increases you have to make on each size. As you can see here, we've increased the stitch on every 10th stitch. When you increased, you're gonna knit a piece and then increase again and knit a piece. That you have to do 6 times. If you want the blouse to be even longer, to be a dress for example, you can continue as it may fit you. We have made all our increases and our knit rows, and now is the time to make the final touches, which is sewing in the buttons and casting off stitches. When you cast off stitches, you're gonna knit in 2 stitches on your needle, and then you're gonna take the back stitch and take it over the front stitch. Then you're gonna knit in 1 stitch more and do exactly same as we did before. Take the back stitch over the front stitch and continue this all the way around. But do remember to have a loose hand, because if you're too tight in the grip, you're gonna have a really tight edge. We're down to the final 2 stitches that we have to cast off. We cast everything off, and now we have to make the 2 final stitches. So you're gonna knit in the last stitch, take over the back stitch over the front stitch. And then you're gonna break the yarn and then pull the yarn through the stitch you have left. After you've done that, do remember to weave in the ends to the blouse. Now we have the final result. Do note that I have iron damp the project so you have a nice smooth blouse. Thank you for watching our video. Do remember to subscribe to the channel to get more free knitting patterns.